Hello, Gary.
Ready?
Hello, how are you?
Hey, Ricky. How's the sound?
Your sound
Let's
is
see my video. Okay, let's turn on my video. You cannot start the video because the host has stopped it. Oh, okay. How things going? How things going?
Not too bad.
Is there any feedback? Any feedback?
Yeah, because the background video is playing. So we have some feedback. Only happens in this M training room.
Right. So it's not from outside, like it's just like video.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be speaking now.
You were moderating just now, Fatah? Which one were you moderating just now?
For me?
Yeah.
I moderated the COVID-19 PAM form and also the Chong Li Xiong pricing.
Husam, I get a error with you.
Yeah, it's because of the video.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. You've come to session 4, which is highlighting architect Husam and architect Gary. Just a reminder to copy down your CPD code that should come up in the polls. So I think you have to scan the QR code or remember the code and plug it into the questionnaire at the end of the session. So we got 2 speakers today, as I mentioned, architect Husam and architect Gary. They will both present their topics, one after the other, and then we'll do the Q&A session after that. So you can use the Q&A feature in the Zoom tool to post your question, or alternatively, you can just post it in the chat and we'll address those. I'll ask them directly to the panelists, but participants can only type in the questions and we will get to all of them that we can within the time that we've got. So first up, we have Husam, who graduated with a Bachelor of Architecture from IIUM in 2007. He's currently a director at Architectural Projects Team, Sendirian Berhad, a professional green building consultant, and the principal at Creative Environments and partner at Total BIM Consultants. He is also a CIDB subject matter expert for CIDB and a PAM Council member 2020-2021. He has been doing CAD since 1997, back in his high school, using AutoCAD 14 and 3D Studio Max before moving on to Architectural Desktop, then ArchiCAD, and later Revit. In 2003, he began doing contractual research work on sustainability for prominent architectural firms using computer simulation and some other engineering and physics simulations to assess design integrated for energy efficiency and sustainability, integrating BIM with green building practices. His practice using BIM is simple and adaptable, and he hopes to share this with others in his talk today. Architect Gary graduated in 1989 from Kansas State University. So I'm sure he's happy to be here in Malaysia where it's not freezing. He's currently a registered professional architect with LAM and a PAM corporate member. He started his architecture career with HOK Kansas City, and Bolin Chawinski Jackson in Pennsylvania. Upon returning home to Malaysia in 1991, he joined BEP Architect, then the Architectural Network, and then appointed as Director of Architectural Projects Team, Sendirian Berhad, in 2004. In 2006, he started his own practice, GAA Architects, and Gary Wong Architect in 2007, and undertook many private and government architectural projects. In 2015, he returned to Architectural Projects Team, Sendirian Berhad, as a director until today. He motivated by his passion in design and construction technology since graduation, architect Gary has partnered with architect Husam in forming Total BIM Consultants to undertake building information modeling related projects, and both partners strive to be a catalyst to transform local building consultants, developers, and builders to embrace BIM technologies. Both partners sat with CIDB in the Construction Industry Transformation Program Working Group to assist with the government's initiative to transform the construction industry to achieve higher quality, safety and professionalism, environmental sustainability, productivity, and internationalization. So the first speaker, as I mentioned, will be architect Husam, followed by Gary. So I'll hand it over to Husam and we can get going. You're muted, Husam.
Yep, sorry about that. Yeah, happens to me all the time. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So this is session 4. So this will be the last session for today. I hope you've had a good run with CPD Unlimited for the first 3 sessions. And I'm hoping that we don't bore you with BIM. Yeah, so my credentials are down there. It's exactly as what was introduced, how it was introduced by Ricki just now. I hope you're seeing the front page at the moment. Yeah, and you can see that I also have CIDB and also CIDB Construct logo on the front page. Basically, the initial stage of the presentation was prepared by CIDB. Basically, I'm presenting on works that we've been working for them for the last 4 years. So this is our setup. Basically, we are architectural consultancy practice called Architectural Projects Team Sdn Bhd. We have a BIM consultant and also a green building consultant services. And together, we basically work everything in a holistic manner. So hopefully we can produce better buildings in the future. So I think everybody know what BIM is. Basically, it's an accurate model. It's an accurate virtual model of a building digitalized for construction. So this model is known to be BIM information model. So it's not so much about the model, it's more about the information. So once you have a lot of information in the model, you can use it for planning, design, construction, operation of the facilities. It helps architects, designers, constructors to visualize things, and you can do everything. You can do a lot of things in a simulated environment before things get to be built. So the potential for BIM is actually enormous, and we've been doing this for the last. I've been doing it at least since school, and Gary said to have been doing it since 1991, and even after 20 years, the movement of BIM in the industry is still very, very slow. So we would like to see that, if it's done properly, it not only makes your job in the office faster and easier, less mistakes, but it also helps to speed up the projects on the field. Now, before I start with my slide, I have a video presentation set up by CIDB Construct. It will take 3 minutes, so let's enjoy. So yeah. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation. All right. Yeah, so that video was not produced by us. It was produced by CIDB. So maybe some of it might not be entirely accurate, but I think you get the idea. So NBeS is it's a CIDB initiative to trying to digitize the building plan submissions. Now, the building plan e-submission has been around for a while, but all of this time, the e-submission has been done using PDF. And once you submit the PDF, in order for the plans to be processed, you will still need to submit a hard copy version. And a lot of people are not happy with this, but that's how things has been going on for the last couple of years. And one of the problems with building plans is that it always gets rejected with a lot of errors, with a lot of issues. And the local authorities have been complaining, especially the fire department has been complaining about the rate of rejections, which they want to really try to reduce. So this initiative for BIM e-submission has been going on since 2015, 2017. What they did in the initial stage was that the whole system was done entirely by CIDB. And what they thought that they could do is that could bring in any BIM model, plonk it into the system, and run it for testing. But obviously that's not the case. So that's where we come in as PSP ourselves, and also BIM operators. We assist them with overseeing how you can actually use BIM and put it into their system so that it can be tested. So the development and programming of the NBeS system basically is looking at, they're trying to tap into the OIC process. There are 6 processes in the OIC system, and the BIM e-submission is looking at only one section of the whole process within process 2. Okay, so in the initial stage, there was a meeting that was done. It was a full workshop. We were not involved, obviously. And 13 categories from the bylaw was picked out for it to be tested. But once we've developed the system, we basically expanded it. And I think we've covered the entire of UBBL 1984. So the NBeS system is focusing only on process 2. And in process 2, you have the planning submission, you have the land matter planning, building, and everything else. But because most of the other parts, although they wanted it all to be digital, it's very difficult to focus. And the direction that was given at the time is only to focus on the building plan submission, looking at building department and also fire department. So this is largely looking at Street Building and Drainage Act and also the Uniform Building Bylaw. It started off with 1984, and then we expanded it to 1986, 2012. And we are also in the pipeline to update it to the latest version of UBBL once it comes out. So you have the plan bangunan, so that is what we are looking at. So we're not looking at any other things else. But the provisions from the planning will actually be included in the submission of the building plan. So there will be items like, how many car parks that you need to put in, what is a green area that you need to provide. Do you need to provide spaces like, tadika, surau, and all those things. All of the requirements that the project will have during the planning stage will be embedded as a data into the model. And obviously it needs to be modeled. And the functions of the system will actually check against the data that has already been given during the building plan, during the planning stage, and also all the items that is embedded into the UBBL for the building plan assessment and also for the fire checking. So since 2017, yeah, I need to mention this. What they're trying to do is, because once you put the model into the system, the model gets to be checked automatically, then you'll be able to get your result out within 48 hours. And when it started, it was 100 and something hours, and then they tweaked the system, and then they, add some capacity, all those IT stuffs. Eventually, we had one project that we tested that could actually get the results within less than 48 hours. So, and that it was very, very impressive. In terms of the documents that is being reviewed, obviously in the beginning we go on the more basic, I wouldn't say basic, the more easier buildings or purpose group. We focused on single residential, and then we moved into residential buildings for high-rise without any commercial attachment. So basically, we reviewed the UBBL, we reviewed the standard 1184, and then later we also included 1183. And for other areas, we also have reviewed against their planning requirements and also the fire requirements as well. And in order for us to do this, when it was first rolled out, the test pilot was given to 4 local authorities, which is PJC, MBPJ. So they wanted the big PBTs, and they also wanted a smaller city. So we welcome in MPK Kanga and also MBMB. So that's Melaka Bandaraya Bersejarah. And for all of these PBTs, they selected a project, and then we run a test project, an actual project as a pilot. So all of this process has already been completed, and CIDB is in the process of coming out with a report for the industry and also the public to review. Now, how we do the testing for Total BIM? Basically, we focus on the modeling side of it. So we check the requirements. We tell the programmer what the requirements are. And we model it based on that requirement. So what the programmer does is they use the words from the UBBL, and then they turn that into sort of like a word search kind of thing. And basically, that's a simple logic of the system. So we have a BIM model. So what you can see there in the on the left, that is one of the first models that we tried and tested. The flow process is you have to model everything in. We started with Revit and ArchiCAD, and at the midpoint, it was decided to just focus on Revit first, see how it would fare, and then we will only develop it for other platforms. In doing so, we got the whole office to actually be well versed in both Revit and ArchiCAD. So once you have modeled it in Revit, it has to be exported into IFC, and then the IFC model is what the system will check based on the metadata that we have already embedded into the IFC template. And then we'll do the auto checking, and then the report will be generated in a form format. Okay, and the time is expected to be completed within 24 to 48 hours. So you'll get an ugly looking building like this. The color is obviously off because it's not ours. The system basically sets the color to the model. So we're trying to look into how to make this look as how it was designed, because this is what the local authority will be seeing once the IFC model is regenerated into their system. And this is a model that will be tested. All of the components is actually selectable. And then in the system, it will come out red and green. So the ones that are failed, you can actually click on them. It will go into the page where it says where is the error, and then which location is the error. It will highlight you what is the value that is required based on the standard and what is the value that is given. Very crude, but I think it would be, it can work. And they're looking at reducing the process to more than half if it's possible. So the benefits of this is that you get to really expedite the checking process. So what NBeS does is that it allows the PSP to run the system, the model test on their own. And then once the model has been cleared from all errors based on the computer checking, and also the ability of the PSP being a competent person who knows the requirements, so he's certain that the design is compliant. The system says it's in compliance, and then they think that they're ready to go and do the submission. The system, the submission at the local authority will actually rerun the test again, and then they will make sure that the result comes out the same. And based on the discussion, a certificate will be given based on the computer testing, and that will be your building plan submission and your approval. Now, some of you might ask, in the UBBL, it says that menghantar 2 perenggu kertas, 2 perenggu linen, and all those stuff. So the requirements in the bylaw, if required, can be amended. But at the moment now, they're looking at how to possibly do this flow process much more quicker than it is today. So very straightforward. Do the model, test it. When it comes out okay, bring it to the local authority, and that's your submission. And then they will test it. And then if it's okay, then you'll get your building plans approved. Now, this has not yet looked into all those complicated relationship with OSC 3+, one window serving, and distributing to all the technical agencies and all that. Part of those building submission process has not yet been looked through in detail, but a mechanism has already been planned in the background. So if you're a PSP, then this is what you would like to see. When you want to go into the system, especially if you're already BIM capable, you will want to have a copy of this document. This document at the moment now, it's only with CIDP eConstruct. Once you enroll in the program, they will actually provide you with this document. They'll provide you the briefing of how to use the document. We've tested it with several PSP. Those PSP who are already BIM capable, it is just a change in their standard only. But for those who are very new, who are not yet well-versed in Revit, they will be struggling a little bit, because you really need to be at a certain level of BIM competency in order for you to actually use the system and the template. But once you get to know this, you'll be able to see all of the clauses and all the compliance criteria that is already embedded in the UBBL standards, and also the guidelines, building guidelines and planning guidelines. And it can be applied to a broad-based building type. So we've tested single house residential, terrace houses, shop lots, double-story, three-story, single staircase, double staircase, multi-residential. We've also tried low-rise commercial building, high-rise commercial building, and we're going into mixed development now. So the system is although it's still very, very new, it is also very, very robust. And what you'll need to do is, inside Revit, once you've got the template, you need to fill in data. So once you put in the data, so these are non-graphical data. So you basically take from your UBB, from your planning approval, from your building plan requirements, and then you have to key in all those information like number of car parks and all that. That will actually be used to reconfirm your model. So there's a few of this. And from the system, it automatically generates schedules. So you can know the number of hydrants, the distance between hydrants, the distance from the hydrant to your building. Do you actually have that minimum, that maximum 30 meters? What is the distance of the hydrant to the center of the road and stuff like that? Everything will come out in a schedule that in the office, the PSP can actually open this up and review whether the informations are correct or not. Because PSPs, they don't really do the model, so they would rely on the technical people. And you will be able to also check on the slabs, the actual components, and what things are. So we have already assigned in the template all of the IC formats, so that once you model with our template, then all the information that you need for the checking is already embedded. We also check on site compliance. You can do, you can check the height, you can check the building volume. So you need the volume in order for you to assess the fire appliance access. Then you can do the calculation of your perimeter. Then you know what is the fire appliance road, whether you need 1/6, half, 3/4 island side. So all of that will be calculated within the system. And if you actually don't comply, then it will come out red. Not in the Revit. In Revit, you will check it in the schedules, and when you test it in the NBeS system, it will come out red when it's non-compliant. So things like you need to do a cul-de-sac and all that. Total number of hydrants, and this can be translated into your bomba submission, the form that you have to fill in, the spacing, the distance, the travels. Hydrant to curb, hydrant to the building, and also on building compartmentation as well. So once you model, you have to consciously, this is not an intelligent system. The PSP or the person who actually models a Revit needs to actually know what they're modeling. So if that wall has to be a compartment wall, then select the proper family and make sure that it's the right one to be there. But if they actually do it wrong, once they run it through the system will spit it out and say that, nope, this wall has to be a compartment wall. Okay. Things like backplanes, separating walls. We can also do dead end limit, alternative, room spaces. You can highlight all the purpose group. It will also calculate for you your occupancy load, your exits, your capacity exits, your requirements for fire detection, alarm extinguishments, and all that. So it's a broad-based scheduling, but with more or less conventional method of doing the models. So the challenges is basically to ensure the reliability of the NBeS system. Okay. Because that system needs to actually be commissioned. Somebody needs to actually look at whether the system is correct or not, so that the result comes out correct. It will also be a demand on the system. It needs processing power. It needs computational power. It needs time to run. It probably needs a storage space for it to store your data and all that. And PBT thinks that they also need to learn Revit. So we do have the PBTs that are already on board. They are very positive about this. There are several other PBTs that are also looking into exploring the potential of the system. And on the PSP side, is the modeling error that always happens, especially when the model is not being monitored properly by the office. So the BIM execution of the office has to be very, very correct. It needs to be done properly. It needs to be done with a certain level of quality and standards in doing a BIM model. And most of the time, you don't have competent BIM operators. You have people who can operate BIM, but they don't understand the system on how it actually works. So even if we give them the guidebook, then they still need to have some level of training in order for them to actually be able to model something that can be checked within the system. And my last slide would be, it is so exciting because you can, without changing, just by tweaking a little bit on how you work, you can do everything like how you're supposed to do in the office. You can model, you can export the model to 3D for your perspectives and all that. You can put it in your sheets for your 2D printing, for it to go out as standard drawings and all that. So all of the normal functions of BIM that we are doing is all the same. That's the one of our goals when we assist CIDB with the development of the system, to make sure that you work as per as per normal. But then you have the option of actually using the model that you have already created for your project, put it into the system. Even if the PBT still requires you to submit a normal conventional hard copy, at least you can use the system for your own internal checking. So I hope you are interested in the I hope you are interested and excited as much as we are, and we're looking at finalizing the system, and hopefully we can roll it out to the public very, very soon. And beam me up, Scotty. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'll pass it down to Gary for the second set of the session today.
Thank you, Husam. Just share my screen. Is it shared?
Yeah, we see your whole desktop.
All right.
No, you're sharing something else. Yeah, yes, now yes.
All right. Good afternoon. I hope everyone is well this afternoon and still have the energy to listen to my talk here. Okay. I think very important, like what Husam says, is that the competency of BIM competency is important, and of course with BIM competency, your office also have a certain level of managing, training of staff, managing quality of work, and how can we do this? Actually, my presentation is talking about BIM office template. I'm just going to share a bit of my experience. I mean, like my 30 years of experience. I mean, I've actually started with conventional, traditional drawings, drafting, and then eventually move on to the digital world. My first experience in moving to the digital world is when I joined BEP, and I was always impressed by somebody. I was impressed with Dr. Kington Lu, whereby he, as an old person, as a person who is like rooted with traditional way of doing architecture, running the office, he has the enthusiasm to actually pick up a computer and actually learn how to use Excels and spreadsheets. So that in a way has given me sort of like you can say that he's my idol, like, in a way. So he actually encourages us at the office to actually pick up computers and actually to use it to the full capacity to do it in our design and also in submission and presentation and so forth. Okay, I will start with, I think,
Gary,
yeah.
When people were moving from 2D to AutoCAD, from from pen and paper to AutoCAD, you jump straight to BIM, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Anyway, I think this slide tells a lot about many of people who migrate to BIM, or even in the 1990s when we moved to CAD. One of the frustrations that we have is that every time that we produce work, we tend to find that the work are slow and inconsistent, and every time we do a lot of things. So, so these are some of the frustration that we as when we manage a project, when we design a project, these are some of the things that we have to deal with. So during that time, of course, company will start a CAD template. A CAD template will help us to mitigate this frustration. Now we are facing another frustration. Now we are facing with this BIM frustration. Well, what are the BIM frustration that we always face? Well, I'm more interested in what are the cures, because all these cures are the ones that give us relief in our day-to-day work. So my advice to all my staff is that the more you use, the easier it becomes. And the easier it becomes, then you have to be less frustrated. The other thing is a BIM mentorship. We must have somebody who is good, who can mentor and also to guide So it's like a master and student relationship. Easy access to BIM resources and training in office. So in the office, you must have a database so that you can actually get your staff to go and find out. So all this should be in your office with easy access. An office template with a guidebook will also help in our endeavor to get out of this frustration mode. Then the most important is the boss pays me well. I think that is also an encouragement to a lot of young architects who migrate into BIM. Now, what is an office BIM template and guidebook? Well, why we need it is because we want to have a place where we start our modeling, we start our project. So this is a preset standard with all the necessary things that we need so that you can facilitate a smooth schematic design and construction workflow. For new employees that comes in an office, this is the way to get them to produce the kind of level of work that you want following the office standards. And of course, with consistent using and understanding how the template works, the work input and output can be controlled. So every time that you output your model or your design is consistent. And then of course, maintain a high work output efficiency. So basically, we don't want to dwell on slow modeling and slow output of work, which can actually delay our project and meet our deadline for the project. Now, in this BIM template, actually, I've divided I can actually divide this into three kinds of setup. One is the general setup. Secondly is the 3D element setup. And then lastly is the metadata setup. Now, in the general setup, basically, it's just keying in the standard PSP information, the office information, because this information are going to be used in every project. And you only have to do it once, and then every time when you start a project, these are all the information which has already been pre-keyed in. Secondly, is about setting up the working units. Thirdly is like any other CAD softwares that we use. We have to actually determine all the line weights that we want, because it's going to be output hard copy, and whatever that is preset, then you will produce the line weight quality that you want to be issued out to our client consultants. Besides that, of course, we also deal with line weights, we deal with line types, we also deal with what are the colors that we use. Of course, if we use Revit, we don't look into that. But however, we have been so used to doing CAD. Colors is very important to us when we do modeling. The other general setup, I think, is also that we need to establish the hatching styles. By hatching styles, which means the style representing certain materials. And in terms of fill types, there are actually three types of fill that normally that we have to understand: a sectional fill, a cover fill, and a drafting fill. So you need to establish all these three different drafting to represent your drawings. Next is actually the annotation. So certain offices have their own annotation styles, and also have their text size for certain type of scale of drawings. Even like grid, marker symbols, all those things have to be established by the office, and it becomes a standard office standard that the staff have to use. Next is the dimensioning styles, room labeling. General setups, the next general setups is actually the building materials. So we have to set up different kind of building materials with what kind of hatching and what kind of surface fill, because all this eventually will be represented in 2D, and also to facilitate with simple setting out without much doing, without much extra work that you require to prepare for building plan submissions. And also setting out the material and properties allows you to use just to point out the materials, and your specification can be automated without keying in all the time, and also for every drawings. Next is actually the story and level naming styles that can be set up. Marker level symbols for the office can set up. So there are many ways that you can actually prepare. Some of them are already options are already given to you within the authoring software. Some of them you have to create your own if you want it to be a unique way of representing certain elements in your drawings. Next is actually the layer naming. The layer naming is normally is used in a traditional CAD software. Until today, we still use layering. It actually helps with controlling what are the items that you want to see and what are items that you don't want to see. In Revit, of course, we deal with the view template, and you can actually set up those view templates with different kind of combinations. There are some examples I've given here is that sometimes within the drawing, you want to prepare a site setting out whereby you need to prepare drawings to issue out for to the contractor to set up the grade lines. So by turning off certain layers, you can actually without deleting anything, just turn off certain layers, you can actually make that presentation and make that drawings with minimal effort. Next is actually the interior plans. For example, some interior plans whereby we don't want to see any dimensioning, so you can actually use the layer system to turn it off. Reflect ceiling plan and bombard plan. So bombard plans basically is a black and white drawings without any minimum dimension related to the bombard drawings. Okay. Pen color setups needs to be set up, especially for if you're using Revit. Revit needs to have certain colors for certain materials. So you need to set it out. You need to know what is the RGB values. So these RGB values can be in your guidebook for represent certain materials. Next thing is that you need to consider to set up exactly the zone categories. By setting out the zone categories based on residential, commercial, facility, circulation, service, and parking, you can actually in a design, you can actually do schedule listing based on what kind of categories. Especially when you say you design a mixed development, you can actually group your schedules based on the categories. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is actually view override combination, or the view template style is actually is a way that data, things that you model, how it will be represented in your model, and this representation is actually what you want to see when you want to print out. I'll give you an example. When you do your drafting, this is basically what you want to see in your drafting. So by changing the way to represent the drawings, the models, by changing the visual styles, you can actually do it for presentation purposes. Then for building submission, by just switching it, switching in the different mode, the colors that you have set up automatically switches to the material colors, which you intend to use for building plan submissions. For the purpose of bombard, by switching off certain, to change certain styles, the colors of all the fire rated elements will be all converted to red colors. And for construction, as usual, all the colors is not necessary, and it can be turned off automatically by the switch of a style. Similar to SMP. For zoning purposes, representation. Basically, for this visual style is to understand how the process of the office create some of these drawings from a single model. So by controlling these styles, you can actually present the drawings the way it's supposed to be presented. Next, I want to talk about is actually the renovation filter or phasing graphics representation style. This style is normally applies to renovation works where we have an original existing building. From original, we have to prepare a demolition plan, and the demolition plan is highlighted automatically by just switching the materials, by just selecting the material and giving an instruction that this particular wall will be demolished. And when you switch to the presentation mode, it will turn dash blue color. And this is the representation for the change plan. New walls will appear, and the new walls will be in color red. And this is the mode that you will prepare your layout for submission to the local authority. This is actually your new plans that you will issue for construction purposes. Besides that, when it comes to presentation and production of drawings for printing, some of the standard things that are required to be set up, different paper size with the title block. And all these title blocks shall have a pre-embedded information, like for example, project title, client, PSP info, drawing title, drawing number, and so forth. And all this information, all you need to do is you just do it once in the template. It will be automatically printed out. Will be automatic. You don't have to key in on every sheet. So by presetting this, it will help you to reduce a lot of time spent to label every drawings. Now we move on to a 3D element setup. 3D element setup basically is to set up the materials that is required for building constructions, from the basic building materials to a composite material. Composite material means when you have a wall situation where it has plaster and paint finishes, and that forms a composite. Earlier on, I mentioned that the setting up the materials first, with the basic material first, for example, brick, concrete, cement, plaster. Those are the basic materials that you have to set up before you can actually come into doing the composite wall assembly. By doing this composite wall assembly, so every time when you draw a wall by selecting this particular assembly, it has all the information when it comes to quantity, when it comes to specification, when it comes to labeling these particular materials. By clicking onto this object in the floor plan or in the elevation, it will actually label all the information that you require before you actually prepare your production drawings to be issued out. The other elements, 3D elements, is similar. That's part of the building elements is actually the concrete floor, concrete slab. Similarly to the wall, you can actually preset certain standards combinations that you normally use in your project. Similar to the roof that you normally use in your project. And the 3D element setup, for example, door, windows, sanitary fittings, bomba fittings, furnitures, pipes, M&E fixtures, landscape, staircase. These are some of those elements that you can actually so-called model so that it can become your office standards. So you would have a family of libraries where you can always use, and you don't have to recreate all the time every time you start a project. Besides all these modeling that you have to prepare for the template, you may also have to consider other elements, parameters that will help you along the production of these drawings. For example, the fire resisting rating, the door door tags and label size, and also the material and sub-material used for every element. It could be like, for example, a timber wood frame or a metal roof frame, and then the timber wood door, and so forth. So those things you can actually add additional parameters, additional specifications, so that you can actually use it in the when you start to produce the work. Next, actually, the third part of the setup that you need to consider is actually the metadata setup. The metadata setup actually is more towards the production of schedules. For example, schedule areas and finishes. Schedule areas and finishes. You may actually able to list out what are the materials for every space that you create in your model, and also with that. You can also produce the areas automatically. So every change in the areas and also the change in the dimension of the areas, your schedule will automatically change without having to key in the change area. So all these are self-automated. Similar to store schedule, once you have got all the doors, family, everything all in place, by placing doors in the models, you will be able to automatically list out the size of the element, and also the finishes of the element without much keying in, and also you can actually allow or add certain rule sets. Actually, I say it's rule sets because some of these elements that you add in, for example, openable areas, when you create the objects, you can actually create a formula whereby any change in the door, the areas for the openable areas will be changed automatically. Similarly to windows, windows will have, by setting the size of the windows, you can actually generate the areas, openable areas, and daylighting areas that's required for daylight and natural daylight and ventilation schedule. And with this door and windows, you can actually combine it, and you can actually list out the natural daylighting and ventilation schedule without exiting the software to Excel and to do the schedule room by room in Excel. So all this can be done internally within the authoring software itself. Of course, the other things you can do to get out the metadata for car parking and motorcycle parking space, actually with the libraries that you have created for car park or motorcycle parking space, you can actually list out the number of car parks automatically based on the number that you have actually modeled inside your BIM model. Stair schedule, similarly, you can list out the number of staircase, number of risers, and the height of the risers, as we normally do indicate into our drawings. But in this case, you can actually list out just to verify that the compliance of the risers and the depth of the threads are complied to the UBBL. The other metadata you can actually extrapolate is the compartment schedule and volume schedule. By modeling the spaces, you can actually produce the total compartment areas automatically and inclusive of the volume by just indicating the height. And by referring to the table here, you can actually check whether for certain area types, whether the compartments are the minimal compartments limit are met. Similarly to firefighting, earlier on which Husam has shared, actually the hydrant lines, by indicating the markers, distant markers in the model, you can actually list out the total lines, total distance for each line from each hydrant to another hydrant. You can actually list it out, and you can actually self-check the compliance for this particular UBBL compliance. Hose rail spacing, similarly, like what we normally do in our drawing, we need to dimensioning onto the plans before we print out for submission to Bomba. In this case, in terms of workflow, is not different. We still have to draw the lines, but in this case, this is actually a marker that we draw on the floor plan. By drawing the marker, you can actually total up to see whether the distance are complied to. Similar to dead end limit, we also draw it onto our floor plan. So with this preset schedule, you can actually list out the dead end limit, and the distance will be shown and compared with, and then you can actually print this out whether it complies or not. And this can be used for submission to the local authority. Similar to alternative exit distance unsprinkled, a schedule can be preset and list out for self-checking and also for submission. Similarly, the fire detection alarm requirement based on the building types, and this can be actually listed out space to space. Certain space requires certain elements, so you can actually select what are the things that is required for that particular space. So these are some of the other schedules that you can actually do, which we are in the process of doing. We are looking at building plan submission fees being tabulated automatically. Even construction cost estimation, we are in the process of doing that. Furniture listing and cost estimation also, it can be preset. So these are some of those schedules which you can actually do along the way and develop along the way when you develop your BIM template. As for the guidebook, I believe when you set up this template, set it to get, someone have to alter the guidebook, and this guidebook will be your office standards. And for every staff that joins the office, they have to be familiar with this guidebook. And once they start to use the template and the guidebook, I think they should be able to pick up what the office required of them in terms of producing and modeling and meeting the office standards. So what is the outcome from, well, I think with the template, I think the office, you will able to get out of this frustration, and you will actually be successful in terms of meeting your deadlines and quality of works, and also the staff expectancy, and also it will also provide you with a proper way of managing your office in BIM production. So what is the outcome? Change of staff in the office will not affect the BIM work production and quality. Transform BIM office will not be derailed by resigned BIM staff. So these are some of the, with this template and with this guidebook, even though a person, a staff that leaves, you would still be able to maintain certain level of competency, certain level of production quality, and also you won't be held ransom if someone actually leaves, and then you will be left without someone maintaining the kind of work in BIM. So lastly, BIM production efficiency is equal to more projects and more profit. So this is what I think that all architecture firms are hoping to be able to adopt new technologies. By adopting new technologies, you'll be more reliable and you can actually secure more work. Hence, the office will actually, you will be able to gain more profits. So this is all I have to share. Thank you. So for anybody who is keen to look at how you can actually gain more knowledge, please contact Pam. We are part of the PAM BIM committee, and we have set this committee to help the industry and also to help the other fellow architects to actually move on to adopt BIM. Thank you. Back
Thanks,
to you,
Gary.
Ricki.
It's very informative. And yeah, now we move on to the Q&A session. So like I mentioned before we started, you can key your questions into the Q&A app, part of the Zoom interface at the bottom, or you can just type it directly into the chat window on, you can either open that up, there should be a button at the bottom to open up the chat, and then you can type your questions in there, and we'll try to see as many as possible in the next half an hour or so that we've got. I might get the ball rolling, and I might call Husam up again. Using the NBeS system, like when you're saying you want to use it to check out the compliance of your projects, have you managed to use it in a couple of like real life projects and been able to evaluate, you know, in terms of bug checking as well as the accuracy of it?
Yeah, actually, all of our projects basically uses that system. How we've devised it, actually, the checker is the second part of the checker system. What important is the modeling is correct, and you are able to check it in the office on your own. So this allows a protocol in the office whereby the modeler, guided by the senior architect or the coordinator, can actually review whether the building is in compliance with the requirements or not, and then the PSP or the principal can just go and review and check whether all the numbers checks out or not. So in terms of checking it within the system, we have run 4 pilot projects. Those are not our projects. So what we did was we set up a program for PSP that has a project that they are currently going into a submission. And what we do is we give them a tutorial on how to use the guidebook. We give them the basis of how NBeS actually works. And basically these architects already have a BIM model. So what they need to do is they need to adopt our template. And once it is completed, they will run it through the NBeS system. So all of this is done within a 3-day workshop, whereby the first day was on the showing how the NBeS system works. The second day is to prepare the model, and it is run by the end of the day. So CIDB basically brings their systems and everything, set it up in the hotel, and everybody goes back and have a nice pool outing, you know, sipping nice iced lemon tea by the pool. And by the time we come back the next morning, the results were already out. And it is fantastic. It's really, if all of the submissions to local authorities like that, you submit, and then you go have a nice hotel holiday, the next morning you can see your results actually comes out. And it's really, really interesting to see how this works. And obviously local authorities who have been through the process, they are very, very positive, and they would actually want this to be rolled out as quickly as possible. But you know, being CIDB, so they have to still go through few process. So we have with PAM a process setup like what Gary has shown just now. Basically, that was the detailed setup of what you need to do for the office. And there's a way to actually embed most of the compliance calculations and review within the software itself. And you can actually do checking immediately whilst you are actually modeling. Because a lot of people have this understanding that they need the BIM model and they need to put it through a system, press one big red button, and then that system will tell you all the errors. Especially when you go and do a project that needs clash analysis. They want you to, you know, we do a project, we are competent people, right? So while you do a modeling, you find out any errors, and then you immediately highlight that, and then you make rectification. And then when you put through the clash analysis system, it comes up with no error. clients are not happy. Somehow I want to see no error, you know. But if you are competent, then while you're modeling, you are resolving the errors immediately, and then the checking through the system is just to confirm that there is no clashes. So similarly, if you are able to use a template properly, you can self-check in the office. Once you put it into the NBeS system, it comes out with no error, then that would translate to quicker or more faster building plan approvals.
All right. So the NBeS system, is that something that will be available for people to use locally so they can test it before they submit it? Or are you saying you have to use the schedules as a means of quality control before you submit it?
Well, when you say available locally, it's developed for the local market.
On the local machine, will there?
Okay.
I mean, your project, will you be as in an architect's firm? Can they test it in-house before they submit it to the PVT, or do they?
What CIDB will do is they will give you a link, and with that link, you basically register the project within the NBeS system. You can click into nbes.gov.my, but I don't think most of the links are working at the moment. So you go in, you register your project, and then you upload your IFC. So uploading the IFC means that the model is ready for checking. So we put in another procedure that it is best for you to actually check the model in your office without using the web-based checking. So do it first within the native software, and the checking in the system is more or less a formality. And a lot of people are saying that, oh, if I need BIM, then I need 32 gigabyte of RAM, and then I need 1 gigabyte of graphics card, and I need all of this. It's not true. But we've seen people doing BIM using an i3 HP with 4 gigabyte RAM, and they can still produce good BIM results. So we are out here trying to show to people that in order for you to go into BIM, it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to listen to all those people selling you Revit software and telling you have to buy a Dell workstation that costs you 15,000 ringgit. So have a computer, adopt BIM, make sure that you are competent, and if you really need that extra power, do it once you are more competent, and you can produce better works after that.
Yeah, sounds good. I've got a question for Gary now. We're asking about the office template. How often, like once you've set one up in an office, how often would you look at updating the template file?
Actually, updating the template files have to be quite regular, because every time when you model certain things or you do certain things in the model, you find some other better way to do it. So once you find a better way, you need to update your model so that you don't have to keep repeating the same old thing, and then it's like, why am I doing this? I should have put in my template. So it's an ongoing thing. So you just can't stop there. It's an ongoing thing. So.
Mm-hmm. So what would be your advice about wanting to, if you, like you say, you see something where some sort of work process that you'd want to embed into your template file, but you can also see that you want to use it in current projects. Do you advise on that, or do you, I mean, what sort of process would you go through to update your current working project files?
Well, our process actually is quite consistent, because most of the time when we do our work is basically is at the end of the day is production, right? So in terms of the template that you create is always is very similar. So there's no such thing whereby you create one template for certain output, and then you divide another template for another kind of output. But most of the output are similar. So the way I look at it, if there are some slight difference, you may actually just modify it a bit for that particular project instead of changing the template.
Fair enough. Okay, I think this one might be similar for Husam as well. I guess for the NBeS, you're saying that you've set up the template to have those predefined calculations, and you have your measurement objects set up in terms of like measuring the distance between hydrants and things like that. So that one, the NBeS system that's available for architects is basically packaged as a template file. Is that correct?
Yes. So the template basically would be the property of CIDB. Once you, for the time being, so once you enroll in the e-submission program, they will actually release you the template for your project, and also they will also give you the guidebook. So so that's where you will start off with your e-submission process. It's not available just in the open. You basically will need to go through the e-submission program with CIDB, and they will have some incentives once you enroll.
All right. And how long does that normally take? Would you estimate, like for someone starting from scratch, say the moderately competent BIM user, how long will it take them to learn to use the NBeS system?
Well, the participants will have to be very patient, as we have to be patient with them. A lot of people think that the BIM is a magic tool where they can envision a building and then the thing will build for them automatically. So for somebody who is beginner, the learning curve is actually a little steep, and would require more than 3 days. So that means that they actually have, when we teach them about the template, we basically are also teaching them how to use Revit. And I don't see this very productive, because it's more about learning how to use the software before you do the NBeS. What do you call it? To use the system more optimized, it's good that you are already competent with the application, and then you understand why things are and how things are being laid in a certain manner. Because some of the things like the measurement tool, that's actually a family. A lot of things that we set up is also a family, and if you don't know how to manipulate a family in Revit, then it will be very difficult to teach. But once you get the hang of it, I don't think you want to go back to doing normal 2D AutoCAD, because this one you can see your building, your building plan for Bomba submission drawing. You can see everything in 3D. The walls, the separating walls are red, and then all the lines are all red. Hydrants are all red. Where you color the fire appliance access are all red. It shows you all the dimensions straight away. And it's better than looking at it from a 2D plan. And if you actually need to present the building to the fire department, instead of just showing them the plans, you can actually bring the model and show them this is how it looks like, and all the fire requirements are all already colored in red. So the idea is to actually be very open with changing from a 2D system to a 3D based working methodology, and then adopting the NBeS template would be very, very easy.
Great. Okay. Yeah, we don't have very many questions coming in. Don't be shy, everybody. Please do key in your questions so we can keep Husam and Gary busy for the next 15 minutes or so. Otherwise, we'll leave early.
I was actually racing through my slides just now because I was looking at the different clock.
Oh, you both did very well. Half an hour each. We're right on time. It was well done. There's one comment you mentioned, Husam, about the NBeS system when you want to submit it to the PBT, and you mentioned that the PBT staff said that they they have the idea that now they need to learn Revit or ArchiCAD and whatever other BIM software is there. Is that
It's
something that's
interesting
correct?
because people are always afraid when they submit the plans, and local authority will require that they submit the DWG, and they are always like, nope, this is my property. I'm not giving away my DWG. Then everything will be there already. Similarly, when local authority requires them to submit in Revit. For example, in Singapore, when you submit your e-submission, you are actually submitting your native Revit or ArchiCAD or EcoSim. You actually have to submit that model. So if it's Revit, then all of your families and it will all be embedded into the file. And once this goes to another hand, then they'll have access to all the libraries that you've put so much time developing them.
Right.
The thing about the NBeS system is the submissions is using a format called the Industry Foundation Class, which is an IFC. And the IFC has codes within them whereby it will self-specify. I mean, we preset it. It will specify the elements automatically when you model them. So the model gets to become very, very light. We had one incident where the model was like 320 megabyte. But once it's done properly, the model can be as low as 700 kilobytes. So that's actually very, very small. And the transfer of this data is online and is processed on the web. So basically, you don't need to have any system. Once you upload it to the system, then the server will handle everything else. So there's no requirement for the local authority to actually have a copy of Revit that they ask you to open a native file and show them how to do it, or they will ask you to provide them training. It is not required. The NBeS system basically is IFC based. So for those who don't know what IFC is, imagine you're doing an Microsoft Word project document, and then when you want to send it out, you send it out as a PDF. IFC is just like that. You do all your model in your authoring software, where be it Revit or ArchiCAD, and then you export it out as IFC. People will be able to see the model in 3D. It's just that they won't be able to make any changes to the model.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the NBeS system, you'd think that the submission, the PBT, would rely on the report generated by the NBeS system. So there would actually be no need for them to go in and double check anything else.
Yeah. What was said to us by one of the PBTs is that they actually don't want to check the drawings anymore. It's like Bomba is opting for self-regulation, self-certification. They actually don't want to check your drawings because most of the time when you submit drawings to Bomba, the reports that we got from going through the meetings with them is that some of the architects submit to them a blank drawing and hoping that the Bomba tells them how to design. And this is not just frustrating, it's also very annoying to them. So by having a system like this, it requires the office of the PSP to actually be competent in producing the drawing. So when you draw, you know that you are drawing for compliance, and you can actually self-test the model for compliance. Once it's ready, you can just go and do the submission. One PBT actually says that we'll actually put out a certificate. And because PSP, being PSP, you need to be responsible for the drawing. Now, in this case, you have to be responsible for the model. We're going to produce you a certificate based on the NBeS output, and you have to sign on it. So that becomes the submission of your building plans already.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. So will that be a digital signature, or you still need to print out the certificate?
Yeah. They have also been talking about the digital signature. I can't remember what the system is called. I think DBKL has something very similar, but no longer using a dongle. Nowadays, there will be a phone app that is tied to it. and the signature is basically will be embedded into that system. But I think the more pertinent question to ask is, how does this actually falls in with the OIC 3+? Because we know that the all of the submission actually doesn't go through directly to the department. You have to submit it through the receiving window. And how does this system go in when you do the submission? So the discussion with the DH, working group for the delivering of construction permit, especially with KPKT, they are looking into the matter, trying to resolve how OIC 3+ can first work and be ready for the market. And once that system is more or less matured, then the online base can easily fit in. One of the things that has been discussed during the changes in the upcoming UBBL 2020 is that some of the clause has been taken out to allow for an e-submission method. So it is, I think it is the matter of time before an e-submission based on a BIM model will be accepted in the future.
Very good. So, yeah, and NBeS, when is it going to be launched? Do you have a timeline for that?
Well, for NBeS, we've done purpose group 1, 2, 3,
and 4.
4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done residential, office, and shops. So we're supposed to develop one that is for institution.
Mm-hmm.
And factory. So if for institution, then it would be any institutional building. There will also be one section that we will expand on hospitals. So that was supposed to roll out last year in 2020, but I think with the MCO happening, I think the effort is a little bit thwarted. But if the local authorities are ready and the market has already vetted, the industry has already vetted the system, and the reports from the government agencies and they have an independent checker on the system and the reports and also the guidebook. If everything checks out, then eConstruct actually, or CIDB in particular, they are actually very eager to release the NBeS system out to the market to be used.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a timeline though, I'm sorry.
Okay. So that, but hoping like by mid or third quarter of this year or so, you think?
Well, probably by the end of the year. I don't think I can guess. But if we are actually looking forward to the NBeS, I think it's very good to adopt the steps that has been shown by Gary just now. And these are not new because in the PAM BIM committee, we've been talking about templates since 2016. So it's just a matter of time before it becomes an industry standard. And I think PAM will have to issue out one basic BIM template for our members to use, I think.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question for Gary, is like, if you're an existing company using BIM already and basically you're just using the out-of-the-box template, how do you suggest to companies to get started on doing their own office template? Should they just develop from an existing one, or like clear out the file and start from scratch? What are your suggestions?
Well, I think for any companies that has a specific, like say CAD standard that they have, so they have to convert that CAD standard into the BIM standard first. That is for the 2D, 2D elements. So they have to convert that, because those are the things that they have been building for the past 10, 15 years. Of course, they have to understand now is now that they're producing the work from a 3D workflow, so they have to consider things, for example, materials, because like for example, if you say if for your output of say an elevation building for submission purposes, if the facade is plaster, so you just need to set the color that you want to print out for your submission, which is yellow in color. So those are the additional color setup that you need to do in order for you to transition into how would you say materials having a certain colors for the purpose of preparing for building submission. And those are the additional things you need to add.
So you're basically saying that often it's a good place to start by using an existing project where you've done those sort of setup, like you say, when you set up the walls to be represented as yellow in the elevation.
Yes.
Then it's a process of saving that file as a template and then stripping out, parts of the model that you don't need, and then keeping those attributes and elements and obviously the schedules that you've actually already used. And so you're not recreating those settings every time you start a new project.
Correct.
Yeah.
So every time,
yeah.
Yes, correct. Every new project that you do, the last project that you have done, that will be your template, actually.
There's not too much rubbish in there. Yeah. Okay. I think we're almost out of time now, and there's no other questions coming in. So yeah, just like to thank Pam for sponsoring this session and organizing the CPD Unlimited. It's been very valuable for all members, I think, that have come in and listened to all the talks throughout the day. And thank you very much to Architect Gary and Architect Husam for presenting and sharing your knowledge. And yeah, hope everyone has a good weekend and stay safe, and hopefully you can all line up and get your jabs, and we'll be back to normal as soon as possible.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so there's no more questions, and so we'll close it up. See you guys.
See you guys. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.